Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing this past week for the San Jose Sharks, recapping it, this being, of course, week 10 of this season. So the week started out after the Sharks had put together a few solid games in a row. They came up against the New Jersey Devils, a team in which they had thrown the lead against earlier this season. They came into that third period up 2-1, ended up losing that game 3-2, so the Sharks were looking to make up for something like that, and that they did, as they managed to control this game more or less for the entire 60 minutes. A couple times the Devils came close, but it seemed as though the Sharks had it under control for the majority of the time, and they managed to get the 5-2 victory. Sharks then went at home again to face off against the Dallas Stars, a team they had also lost to previously this season, twice, each by a 1-goal margin, but this time the Sharks got the better end of that deal. They managed to end up winning by the single goal. They took it 3-2. Sharks then played their final game of this week. It was the Sunday, it was yesterday, against the Chicago Blackhawks, and while it didn't start off too well as the Blackhawks took a 2-0 lead early, Martin Jones ends up getting pulled after he lets in the third goal. Aaron Dell steps in, the Sharks offense steps up, and they managed to get the 2 points versus one of the worst teams in the league, at least standings-wise, the Chicago Blackhawks, 7-3. Moving on to the offensive threats this week, it was, of course, Timo Meier who led the way. He had 2 goals in both the Devils and the Stars game, got an assist in the Blackhawks game, so he led the way with 4 goals, 1 assist, put his total up to 18 goals, as well as 5 points to get up to 33. Brent Burns, while he didn't get a goal, he got 5 assists, including 3 against the Blackhawks, which put his point total up to 34. Tomas Hertl, 2 goals, 2 assists, which was nice to see from Hertl, who had been struggling somewhat recently. He gets 4 points this week, which puts his point total up to 25. Logan Couture with a goal and 3 assists. He has 4 points this week for 34, keeping him with pace for Brent Burns, for the point lead of the team. Then it was Kevin Labanc with a goal and 2 assists after he took a nasty high stick against the Blackhawks. He gets 2 points to sort of reward himself, I guess. And he puts himself for 3 points on the week with 22 on the season. Erik Karlsson, 0 goals this week. However, he did also get 3 assists. He's been on a nice little assist streak so far, and he has 22 points now on the season. Those were the only 6 players to get more than 2 points, which is, actually quite impressive. The Sharks had 6 players getting more than 2 points this week. Moving on to the news of the week, the first thing that we need to talk about is Joe Thornton's health. How healthy is he? Will he be able to continue to play game after game? Because prior to all 3 games this week, he did not participate in the morning skate, and so it was sort of a wonder whether or not he would actually play. Definitely against the Dallas Stars, he was named as a game time decision even. He wasn't really taking line rushes with the team prior to the game against the Blackhawks, and so it has really come down to thinking, will Thornton actually get into each and every single one of the games that remain of the season, which is about 50 or so? And at this point, I'm really not sure. I know Thornton would never voluntarily take himself out of a game, as he's certainly someone who likes to play in every single one that he can, but I'm not sure if his health will allow him to do that, especially with now the morning skates and such that he has been skipping recently. However, that doesn't mean he has been unproductive. He did have a goal against the Stars. He had an assist against the Blackhawks. This was still a decent week for Joe Thornton, and so hopefully moving on, he can find some better luck with his health for the rest of the season. Next is Suomela and the 4th line, sort of by extension. Suomela this week had been sent down to the AHL, so he was no longer just being a healthy scratch getting some games. He actually scored a goal with the Barracuda this week. But the 4th line that has been left once Suomela was gone, Radil, Karlsson, and Goodrow, has actually been quite solid and was very solid this week. They got a couple of goals against the Blackhawks, and just in general, they have been looking a lot better, so I don't know if Suomela will be on the way back up to the Sharks squad anytime soon. It's definitely still a possibility. It's definitely still in the cards for some point later on in this season, but right now, Goodrow, Karlsson, Radil are playing some very good hockey, and so I assume that could be the 4th line for the foreseeable future. Finally, not necessarily San Jose Sharks, 2018-19 season related, as Ryan Merkley is not a player who's going to be able to join the Sharks at any point this season, at least until right at the end, which is insanely unlikely at this point. I think it's probably just impossible at this point, but he was traded in his league in the OHL, and it was a bit of news breaking. I wouldn't necessarily talk about this necessarily if he was going from a really bad team to a team that's going for the playoffs, but he was traded from the Guelph Storm that were, I believe, a playoff team at this point. He moved over to the Peterborough Petes, who I believe are also a playoff team, or at least very, very close to it. So it was a bit worrisome that the fact that a playoff team will trade a defenseman who's, they're definitely their top point scoring defenseman. I'm not sure if he was their top point scoring player in general, but it'd be like in the NHL today, seeing the Sharks randomly trade Brent Burns to a competing team as well. It seems to speak towards some sort of issue that he had with the team. So it seems as though maybe those attitude issues that people have talked about with Ryan Merkley haven't necessarily worked themselves out completely yet. Maybe the change of scenery will do him some good. His first game with the Petes, he got 3 assists. So clearly the points have continued to follow him. But we'll see if his attitude, or his supposed attitude problem, I guess I should say, does improve with this new team, and hopefully he can still make the OHL playoffs. Class dismissed.